Alright, here we go. 9.1 today. Similar right triangles. Now, with this, we have already talked about different ways to prove triangles similar, right? Okay, what's one way? Angle, angle is one way. What's another way, Seth? Okay, side, angle, side. Now, special to that, the sides don't have to be congruent. They have to be what? Proportional. They got to be proportional. Their ratios have to reduce to the same thing. What's the third one? Carly? Side, side, side. Good. Okay, again, the sides have to be proportional, correct? Okay. Today, we're going to start off with a new theorem for us. Okay, we are going to call it altitude of a right triangle. It doesn't have a name in your book, but that would be the best name for that. Scare you? Yep. I need to see it. Okay. Altitude of a right triangle. Okay, what this theorem tells us, and it's going to be kind of confusing, but once we start talking about it, most people it's been making sense. If the altitude is drawn to the hypotenuse of a right triangle, then the two triangles formed are similar to the original and each other. If the altitude is drawn to the hypotenuse of a right triangle, then the two triangles formed are similar to the original and each other. Bless you. Okay, now, like I said, that's kind of confusing. So what we actually have for a diagram, okay, so here's my right triangle. We'll call it triangle ABC. Okay, but we're adding in an altitude. What is an altitude? It's been a little while since we've talked about that. Will you tell me what an altitude is? That was when we talked about altitudes, media, and stuff like that. Carson? That would be the median. Goes from the vertex to the middle of the opposite side. Taylor? Right, so it needs to go from the vertex and be perpendicular with the opposite side. So it's got to form that right angle. Okay, it has to be perpendicular to be an altitude. Okay, so now I'm going to put another point there, D. So my original triangle, which was this triangle ABC, correct? Is similar to these other two triangles as well. Okay? But does the order of the letters when I write those up there matter? Yeah, it does. So that's where you have to be careful, and that is where this gets tricky. Okay, it's easy to know that they're all similar. Everybody sees those three triangles, right? Okay, it's easy to know that. The hard part's getting it in the right order. Anybody got an idea? Let's do the medium-sized triangle first. What's the proper order? A, C, D, which is also similar to triangle. I heard two answers. I heard CDB and CBD. C, B, D. Now, there wasn't a lot of people answering that question, and I'm going to assume that's because that's kind of hard to see, right? Isn't that kind of challenging to see? Make sure you have it set up right. I think it is. So, our rule is that you have to draw what I'm going to draw next on every single problem. Okay, it's not going to take you a lot of time. It's not a lot of extra work, but you need to have it because that'll help make sure you don't miss these problems. The people that never miss these problems are the people that take the time and draw it out every single time. Okay, so take that time. So what we're going to do, instead of just trying to sit here and look and figure it out, and it doesn't have to look pretty, you're going to draw your three triangles. Large, medium, small. Okay? The large triangle, okay, now obviously my right angles are here, right? If you want to put those in, you can. You don't have to. Okay? What angle is at the right angle of my large triangle? C. Okay? Now going across the small side is B, and then up the hypotenuse is A. Okay, now I go to my medium triangle. What angle in my medium triangle is a right angle? D. Across the small side is C, and then up the hypotenuse is A. My small triangle, the right angle is D. Across the small side and up to the top, C. I do want to point one thing out for sure. Notice the altitude is right here and right here, correct? That will always be the case. Every single time. Your altitude will be the base of your middle triangle, and it'll be the height of your small triangle. Sometimes? All the time. Every single time, it'll be the base of your middle triangle, the height of your small triangle. Every single time, that will be your altitude. Okay? Now, you're not always going to have to put letters in here at each vertex. Okay? Most of the time, you're going to have numbers. Okay? The small side of my big triangle is 6. The height is x plus 3. You plug it in. Okay? If you don't draw your triangles out on these, okay, I won't help you because you haven't done everything possible for you to solve the problem. Okay? So if you ask a question, and I come over and your triangles aren't drawn, what am I probably going to say? I'm going to say draw your triangles and then I'll come back. Okay? If you draw your triangles, you probably will figure it out. Okay? You need to draw your triangles or I'm going to have you do that before I help you anyways. Okay, so we're looking at example 1. Okay, we're finding the height of a roof. I'm going to draw a different roof than what they have. Okay, my roof's going to look like this. Okay, here's my right angle at the top. Kind of a funny shaped roof. I have 7.8 meters here. I have 14 point, that's not right, 6 meters, but that's actually down here. This one's 12.3 meters. That whole thing is 14.6. And then here's my altitude that I drew in there, and that's h, and that's what we're trying to figure out. I want to know what is the height of this roof. Just the roof, not from the ground to the point, but just from where the roof starts to the top of it. Okay, now, with that, what's the first thing you should do? Draw your 3 triangles. Again, they don't have to look good. I don't care what they look like. You just need to have them. Okay? Looking at my large triangle, what is the small side of my large triangle? 7.8. Okay? The long side is 12.3, and the hypotenuse is 14.6. Okay? Now on to my medium triangle, which is the left one or the right one? The right one. It's pretty obvious in this case, right? Okay? The base, the small side, h. Remember, that's always the altitude, right? The base is always the altitude. What is the height or the long side of my medium triangle? Okay, so I don't know, right? Okay, so you don't have to put anything. Okay, you might not fill in every spot. Okay, so I don't know what that is. What's the hypotenuse? 12.3. Okay. That was bad. Scoot that over a little bit. My small triangle, do I know the base? No. Do I know the height? H, because that's always the altitude, right? And my hypotenuse is 7.8. Okay. Now, is there multiple proportions you could set up to solve for h? Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Okay. Matthias, how would you do it? What would you set up? Now, are you going to probably use your big triangle since you have every side? Yeah. And then from here, does it matter which one of these you use? No, because either way you're going to solve for h. Okay, so set up a proportion using your big triangle and either your medium or your small. One or the other. Similar triangles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do 12 point.
Which, this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so 12.3 over. What does it correspond to? 12.3 corresponds to these other heights, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which one of these has a height that you know?
So we just do 8.
H equals 14.6 over 7.8. Good. Good now? Okay. Now, obviously, I do want to solve this. Cross multiply. You question, Royal?
Since almost triangles are similar, they all have the same proportions,
Right.
right?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways you could set this up.
You put 14.6 over 12.3.
And as long as you did 7.8 over h, yeah. Yeah. You got to be careful. You can only use 2 triangles. Okay. So now I cross multiply because it's a proportion. I have 14.6 h equals, somebody help me out here, 95.94. So divide by 14.6. Make sure you divide by the right thing, please. I had some people on the test not do that properly. H equals 5 what? What was my label that I started with? Meters. So the height of the roof is 6.57 meters. Now, can somebody please explain to me why I sit here and tell you no decimals, no decimals, no decimals, and then I give you a decimal answer? Yeah, I started with decimals, right? If you start with decimals, you're good, right? Okay. Does it have to be all decimals to be okay? No, you just need one. If you have one decimal, you can give me a decimal answer. That's fine. Okay, otherwise, we want to keep practicing and working with fractions. Okay. Everybody see how drawing those triangles is going to be a huge help? Okay. What I want you to do now is take a look over on page 529. Okay. There's some geometric mean theorems is what they call them. I don't want you to write this down. Hey, I just want to look at it. I'm actually going to come up here and recopy this. It's got to think for a second, apparently. Come on. Try again. There we go. I don't want this here, though. Okay. So I have just my regular triangle that we've been working with. They are telling me in this theorem that dB over DC equals DC over AD. Is that true? Yeah, absolutely, that's true, right? I have my height, my base, right? Okay, so we're good with that. Okay, so do you actually need this theorem if you draw your three triangles out? No. Okay, so you're actually saving yourself some time and you're creating less things to know if you draw your three triangles out. Okay, because they're looking at it out of just this diagram. Okay, don't do that. Don't overthink it. Don't make it harder. Just draw your three triangles, and could you have set that proportion up anyways? Yeah. Now the other thing they're trying to make you realize is, isn't this geometric mean when I have the exact same thing diagonal from each other? Because I have DC diagonal from DC. So is there a possibility that sometimes you might get like x squared or y squared or z squared? Yes. Okay, so that's the main thing they're looking at with that. Just be aware of that. Got this, Travis? Travis? Good? Okay. So be aware that you might have to do some radical stuff. Okay? That's going to happen. So, we're not going to write those theorems down, because if we draw the triangles, we can come up with those theorems. Okay, flip the page. We're going to do an example over here. I got one more example for you, and then I'm going to give you some problems to work on your own. And then we're actually going to do the lesson tomorrow in class. There is a possibility you might have a few problems for homework, but not a lot. So, what I have here is, and I'm actually going to make this one a little bit more challenging to visualize. Okay, so I have this. It's a right triangle. That's a right triangle. This is 6. This is 8. And this is x. I want to solve for x. Step 1. What's step 1, Royal?
Draw
draw your triangles. Now, the reason why this problem specifically is a little bit more challenging is it's not as easy to see where the big and small triangles are, is it? Okay. So, we have to try to figure out, I'm going to put some letters up here just so we can talk about it as a class. You don't need to in your triangle. Where is the short side of my big triangle? Now, first of all, I've heard some comments that are not even in my big triangle. That's my big triangle, right? So my choices are AC, AB, or BC. Well, which one's it obviously not? AC, because that's the hypotenuse, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and fill that in. Do I know that? Yeah, I do. 6 and 8, that's 14. What? Good. Okay, now I got to figure out which one's the big side, which one's the small side. Now, if that's 6 and that's 8, which one of these triangles has to be bigger? The one with the bigger side, right? So that's your big triangle, or excuse me, that's actually your medium triangle, and this would be your small one, right? Okay, so which triangle is going to contain the small side of your big triangle? The small one, right? So is this your small side, or is that your small side? AB is going to be your small side because it's in the small triangle, right? Okay. So AB, small side, do I know it? No. Do I know the big side? BC? No, I don't know it anyways. Now, are you probably going to use this if you only have one side? Probably not. Okay, so let's keep going. I go to my medium triangle now, which we decided was the left or the right one? Right. The right one. The base of my medium triangle is always where? The altitude. So the base is? X. Which means the height must be? If this was the base, because that was our rule we talked about. It's hard to, that's what I mean. It's hard to see in these triangles when they look like this. Okay, up here when I gave you this triangle, it was easy to see that that's the small side of my medium triangle, right? Always. This altitude is always right here. Every single time. And it's also always right here. Every single time. Okay? So right here's my altitude. It has to go right here. Okay? So that means my height is what? 8. My hypotenuse would be BC, and I don't know it, right? Okay? My base of my small triangle. 6. Because the height is always my altitude. Always. So my altitude is X. Every single time, these two things are your altitude. Every single time. Okay, so if you know your altitude, maybe that's where you want to start. Maybe you want to go ahead and put X there and then know that that's 6. Okay, but you have to understand, this is the altitude, and this is the altitude. Every single time. Okay? And then my proportion is going to be 8 over x equals x over 6. X times x squared. 6 and 8. 48. And then what? Square root. X equals square root of 48. Okay, but now I need to do what? reduce my radical. So, Seth, what can come out of 48? That's a perfect square. Okay, I'm going to go with Taylor's. Taylor says 4, but yeah. Okay, so I have the square root of 4 times the square root of 12. Square root of 4 is?
2.
Square root of 12, what breaks down to what? Square root of 4 and square root of 3, so square root of 4 is? Can I do anything with that? No. Okay, we've done about 100 of these now probably. 2 times 2 is? Square roots of 3. So your answer, x equals 4 square roots of 3. Okay. What I want you guys to do is, I'm going to draw 3 problems up here on the board. I want you to solve them. Okay? And then you can come up and check the answers in my book. I'll have them, they'll be on the left side of the book. They'll be circled in blue. Okay, so do that. Come up and check those. And then problem number 4 will be, or the fourth thing that I want you to do will be some problems out of your book. Okay? Okay, remember, be careful. Make sure your short side is in your small triangle. The first one has been catching some people. Do all of those in your notes, please.